We would like to move on to the first panel discussion on AI at scale, from pilot projects to real business impacts. And without further ado, let me introduce you to our inspiring speakers. The first one is Dr. Irvan Bastian Arief, VP of Technology Grant, Data and AI Ticket.com. Good morning, Dr. Irvan. Please take your seat. And the next one, we have Yusron Anas, Chief Information Officer PT Home Credit Indonesia. Good morning, Pak Yusron Anas. Please take your seat. And next one, we have Arief Setiawan, Chief Technology Officer PT Asian Bank Logistics. Thank you for coming. And next one, we have Pranav Agrawal, CTO Magure. Good morning, sir. Please join us here on stage. And last but not least, this panel discussion will be led by our moderator, Anshul Mahendra, Associate Partner SAT, EY Partner. Morning, gentlemen. It is a pleasure to have you all here. And without further ado, over to you, Anshul Mahendra.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. The topic here is AI at scale, from pilots to real business impact. And there is a subtle, underlying truth to this topic, right? If you look at most of the AI deployments in this part of the world, what we see is, 8 out of the 10 enterprises that are leveraging AI today are in POC stages, right? And unfortunately, the trend shows that most of them will find it extremely hard to actually run full-scale deployments. What it essentially means is that it's like a ghost ship. Everything is well and running, but there's nobody on board, right? So the question is, how do we move away from this barrier where we can move from just running POCs to full-scale deployments? And I could not ask for a better panel to have this discussion. The 4 panelists that we have are in different stages and have a very different point of view from an AI perspective. One who has looked at it across industries and different regions. Second, who has looked at it from a very traditional, physical, intensive industry. One from an extremely regulated industry. And one who is, has been more digital AI native, if I have to, call it. Right, so, each of these folks would have faced different problems, and that's why the idea is to get a diverse view of answering this question, right? How do we go ahead away from just running pilots into actual full-scale deployments? Right, so, let me start with Pranav, right? So Pranav, you have a vantage point nobody else has, at least most of us don't have in this room, right? You have looked at it from multiple industries and multiple geographies, right? From startups to banks to insurers, SMEs, you name it, right? So across all of that, what actually separates, the pilots that scale from ones that stall? What has been your experience?
Thank you. So what we have realized is any enterprise who want to jump, or any SME who want to jump into adopting AI, they will not buy 30-point solutions from 30 vendors. They have to have their own AI strategy. That how do they implement? What do they do? So what we are seeing is, when they come with a use case, they have not done proper calculations on ROI, how that investment will give them some returns, how will that add value to their company. So those are the few questions that we actually try to answer when we work with them. So it actually takes about 10 lines of code to create an agent. So you have OpenAI, you have Claude, you have Quen, different models. It just takes 10 lines of code to just create an agent. But what after that? You have to deploy, you have to manage it. You have to also understand when you change the model, what will happen. You have to also understand if the model hallucinate, are you monitoring that or not? So there are various different things that enterprise needs to take care. So what we have seen is people are actually dying in POCs because their InfoSec is not giving the clearance. Their CIO is saying that it is highly costly for us. It will not make sense. So what we always believe is the return of investment should not be the budget for AI should not be carved out from your technology budget. It should add so much value that it is automatically saving the cost for you. So these are the few things that we have seen. What we have seen also is enterprise are chasing guardrails, data privacy, and startups are chasing value. So the definition of AI and AI value is very different for everybody. And what we have also seen is initially the AI use case is not very clear. So when you create a complete unified strategy of AI, that this is what I want to do, you actually plan better. So that's what we've seen so far.
Understood. So its cost is ability to have a real identified value-driven use cases, and then it is actually creating a perspective which is specific to the archetype of customer that you're looking at. So SME will have a very different perspective versus a mature enterprise, right? Okay, understood. So let's double down on the cost one, right? And especially considering that the Indonesian market is very cost sensitive, right? So the per dollar token value that you see in the markets like US and Europe, you know, from a purchasing power parity perspective, Indonesia finds it, you know, extremely hard. Is this something that, you know, you are seeing in enterprises here, you know, Pak Arief?
Okay, maybe. Maybe the case in my company is a little bit different than what Pranav mentioned before. So I agree with one point with Pranav, that actually the cost for AI implementation should not come from IT budget. And fortunately, in my company, my management agrees that the cost is actually should come from any efficiency or any benefit that we get out of AI that can save the company. So if we can justify that, so ROI, agree with Pranav what mentioned, ROI is very important, but what the most important thing is actually how we realize, we create the ROI into an actual results. Because thereon, if we're successful with the first implementation, it will be far more easier to actually roll it out and going to something bigger. So starting small, maybe something simple, but give returns, give benefits, I think it's more beneficial to the company. And it's easier to actually justify it to the management later on.
That's a very interesting nuance, right? So coming from an industry which is very legacy driven, right? A lot of legacy IT stack and a lot of physical barriers to AI adoption, right? Because it is easier to do advanced video analytics in a setup that does not require a lot of movement, right? Yeah. But where you're actually moving in poles, in logistics, right? Again, from an industry transition perspective, I believe these industries are the hardest to adopt AI, right? Can you give us examples on how you have made it successful in your company?
Okay, so compared to the others, maybe e-commerce company and then finance company or even an AI vendor. My company is like a dinosaur company basically. So it's a very physical company. We still handle with captains and masters and tugboat pilots basically to how can we actually get them to use AI. So basically in my company we can separate it into different demography. We have the more IT literate people who is very keen on using AI but doesn't have any guidance on how to use it. And then we have people who don't want to use AI out of two reasons, basically. So one is because they are afraid that AI will later on replace their job. So they have this, they basically get too much of their knowledge from YouTube or for Instagram Reels or something like that. So the conspiracy of theory of getting AI to replace human is in their head right now. So those are the one that doesn't want to use AI. The other part is actually people who doesn't know how to use it. So these are the one that we target first. So the people who actually can get benefit out of AI but cannot use it is the one that it's quite small actually, the segment, but that is the one that we target first. we implement what we call in our company as engineer's companion. So basically, this is a very basic solution. We just uploaded all of our user manuals, our operating manuals, our troubleshooting manuals into an LLM, and then have the LLM later on answer the questions that the engineer in the vessels, in the ships, asked them. So if something happened, for example, the engine is getting hot or the oil is keep reducing, decreasing, the oil level keep decreasing, all they have to do is just ask the LLM, and then it will answer then later on to check on several things that can be a follow-up task for the engineers. So these follow-up things can be checked by the engineers without them having to ask to the main mechanical engineers in the head office. And this exchange of informations and steps that need to be taken is actually improving the time of troubleshooting up to 70%. So instead of waiting for the main engineer to become available, maybe he's busy with some other things, they just ask the LLM. So it's a very simple solution. It's a very straightforward solution, but it works in the field. And the key is actually to have a champion for this one. That's why we ask, because the one that's actually being assisted more by this AI is actually the main engineer in the head office. He will be able to manage his time better because there's not too many inquiries to him asking for what to do with the engine. So we ask him to become the champion, and he is teaching all of the engineers in every vessels how to use the chatbots. So it improves, like I mentioned, it improves up to 70%, and it becomes one of the SOP right now for the engineers in the vessels, that they have to check with the AI first in order to get the steps to be taken. And then if there's no solution on that one, then they will have to check with the main engineer. So that one is actually being part of the actual workflow right now.
Very interesting. Because this is an interesting use case, right? Because you're not talking about the next extremely futuristic use case of AI. You've taken something that drives real value, and that is driven by codification of knowledge, which is now accessible to everyone. And you have not just put it together a platform. You have actually changed your SOPs to ensure that people are actually using what has been deployed. Right? So that's a very interesting use case, or which says that you don't need to invest multi-million dollars in AI models and build advanced use cases to actually utilize AI. So this is one good success story, right? Would be interesting to just know one anecdotal story where things may not have worked out as planned, and what were the learnings from that?
Okay. The exact similar scenario actually, unfortunately, doesn't happen. So we have another scenario which we called, previously was engineer's companion. Now there's another one which is called employee companion. So this is basically just a basic concept, the same basic concept. We uploaded all the company regulations, all the data about employees and etc. into the LLM, and have them actually answer the questions from the employee. Now this doesn't have, it doesn't be implemented quite well as compared to the engineer's companion. The key change is actually in this part, in the employee companion, maybe human touch is still required. Human touch is still preferred by the users itself. So employee would prefer to actually just pick up the phone because their issue is not exactly urgent, so it's not death and life situation or any troubleshooting that can create actually bigger loss. So they just pick up the phone and then call any of the HR employee that they know, and then ask, can I have maternity leave, for example? How many days do maternity leave do I have, or something like that? So any issue in HR, it's actually easier for them to just ask any HR employee that they know, and then they will provide the answers. Even though we have tried that, okay, there's a champion that will assist employees later on to go into the AI instead of just calling to the HR, but still in that particular scenario, human touch, I think, is still important. That's why I don't think it's very successful as compared to what we have in the engineer's companion.
Understood. You raise a very interesting point on human touch, and I have a question for the panel, regarding the impact on humans of AI. But I'll come to that. But for now, let's raise the stakes higher. Yusron, you are trying to scale AI in a very heavily regulated industry, right?
Yes, correct.
So when AI, God forbid, does not work, it's not just a bug. It has real impacts on a loan, a customer, right? And hence, from a regulatory standpoint of view, you will face a lot more scrutiny than some of the other industries, right? So how do you balance innovation with governance to scale up AI within your organization?
Oh, thank you, Asmus. So I think in Home Credit, we are still new to this AI journey. Right? So we consider AI as another transformation journey in the company where the main support will be coming from the top management. So I think this is quite essential to get the full support from the top level to deliver the transformation program. Right? In Home Credits, yes, we are heavily regulated company, so we need to find the balance on delivering the use cases or adoption of the AI to make sure that everything is aligned with the prevailing regulation in this country. So we always see in two different aspects. First is on the value. So we need to ensure that any activity that we deliver, any innovation that we deliver, always bring value to our key stakeholder. In this case, it's actually our customer or even internal stakeholder, which is employee, right? So if there is no value, why bother we do this kind of investment, right? And then in the other aspect is we need to see from the risk associated with it. So I think this is quite essential balance to make sure that when we deliver some things that will bring value, so we understand what will be the risk associated with it and then how we will mitigate those risks, right? So we see this AI as from different risk category. First is on the regulatory perspective. So we always ask ourselves, are we really comply with the regulation? Let's say if we deliver this AI, right? So we are part of this OJK financial regulated company. So for sure there are some OJK that we have to follow, the OJK, POJK 4, which is more into this information system management risk. And also there's a PDP that we have to follow, so to measure that whenever we deliver the AI, the data is quite secure and aligned with the PDP regulation. So all of those regulations actually translated into our internal policies. So meaning that whenever we try to adopt the AI solution, be it in the agentic or in the assistant, so we need to measure that it is aligned with our internal policies. So this is the one thing that we will make sure. Right? Otherwise, this will be becoming the problem of the company. So because this is something that actually makes us feel safe when we deliver some innovation. So the other aspect that we always see is actually on the operational risk. So if we deliver the AI solution, then becoming really, let's say, nationwide rollout. So are we able to operate this solution properly? So meaning that we are able to monitor the performance of this AI, so we are able to manage every single complaint coming from the customer. So I think this kind of things is quite essential for us to measure that we are ready for the operational for that. Right? So then one thing that we try to follow is actually, are we aligned with the international standard? So this is quite becoming, let's say, standard in our company. We have the ISO 27001, we have ISO 27701, and then we are now trying to explore the ISO specifically for AI, which is ISO 42001. So I think this kind of governance policies, which actually translated from the regulatory, from the standard, international standard, is becoming, let's say, definition of done requirements. So whenever we deploy some things, we have to follow this kind of governance.
Understood, understood. No, so let me just, spend some time on the PDP part, a bit, right? So, and this is the same trajectory, from 10, 12 years ago when things started moving to the cloud, right? We saw, that, okay, cloud is going to be the global, infrastructure where you can store your data in the cloud anywhere. And then with, risks that came as a result of that, we started, putting PDP laws together to see, where data has to reside, what data actually, crosses the sovereign boundaries. And that is the same conversation we are having with sovereign AI today, right? So, particularly for some of the industries, right? For example, e-commerce, where you end up storing a lot of customer data, right? What does it mean for you, and how does it impact adopting, AI, especially when it comes to data privacy?
Okay, thank you for the question. So I think we take data privacy very, very seriously. And I think we need to make sure that people understand that data and AI are two different things. A lot of people confuse that, with AI, my data can leak. No. With data, your data can leak. If you store the data properly, AI model is just a model. If the model, if you open the model, you cannot see any data in it because it's got trained by the data, becoming an intelligence. So model is one thing, but how can you store the data, irrelevant of the AI or not, in the more secure way? So there is ISO, like it's been mentioned as well. There is a PCI DSS. There's a lot of regulation that we follow and adhere as a company that makes sure that we follow the standard and the data is called. And then there is a PII, personal identifiable information. All information that can be traced back to you, either your name, your phone number, your address, and so on, need to be safely secured into different container. Even in ticket.com, the data team cannot access the PII data. So, because it's stored on a different location. And the question will be like, if you want to train your AI, why do you need a person's name, or phone numbers, or address, and so on and so forth? So, with this one, it will be very, very tidy. This is the data. There is some data that require privacy. Let's store it somewhere and encrypt this one. Only a very specific people can open this one, which is very few, really very few, less than my fingers and so on. And then there is another behavior data that irrelevant to the privacy that is being trained for the benefit of our customer. So the user, if you like to book a hotel, what kind of hotel do you want to book? We give recommendation. That's trained by the AI. If you type Jakarta and you want to book it for next week, what is the ideal ranking of the hotel? That's another differentiator of the behavior. We train it with AI. So with this one, PI is secure, privacy is secure, AI value can be harnessed for the benefit of our customer as well. And also we adhere with all the, from the payment PCI DSS, from the ISO perspective and so on. So the company will be trusted by our audience, trusted by our customer, and trusted by the government, so we can continue running this one.
This is very interesting, Irvan. And I'd like to go for a slightly diverse perspective on this with Pranav, right? So Pranav, one of the risks that we've observed is that even though from a data residency perspective, the data stays stored locally, but if you're using a frontier model, right, the instances of the model may not be in the country, right? And that is something that certain enterprises fear when they try to adopt AI. Is this a real risk that you're seeing in the market? And if yes, how are you trying to resolve around it?
Right. So first thing we have to understand is that everything does not need frontier model. Because we feel that OpenAI has launched 5.5, Gemini has 3.5 Pro, or Opus has 4.8, we need to use those models. It is not like that. So those models are generic model. They are trained to do everything from a research paper to science to math to medical, everything. So first thing that we do is we try to understand what is the use case that you're trying to do and what is the best way to achieve that. Because what we've seen is a lot of localized model also works very well. And it can be deployed on your own personal GPU. You don't need to spend tokens and export your data. One more thing that we also encourage people to do is to keep the input and the output token on their own servers. When I say that, what I mean is whatever question you ask and whatever answer you're getting, you should actually have a log of that. Because that is a gold mine. All the frontier models are using that data only to train their models to get better. Because there are people who have actually asked some questions and they got some answer. And that is what they're using to train their model further. So the strategy that we have is we try to understand what is the use case and which kind of model can be used, and everything do not need frontier model. And all the large cloud providers actually have not the frontier model unless you opt for private deployment. You have to use OpenAI or Claude or their own privately deployed model. So we encourage people to use their own GPUs and deploy the model there.
Understood. Yes.
So from the architecture point of view, when we talk about LLM, there is 3 different architectures. One is like frontier model, or even not frontier model, that you upload your data to their server wherever it is, then come back to you. Sensitive information should not go through this case. Second, there is a open source model. So if I can tell the brand name, like Facebook have Llama, there is Quen from one company and so on like that from China. So this kind of thing is an open source model that you can deploy in any other location. The third one, maybe some of you never heard it before, there is called SLM, small language model that deploy on device. When the model is deployed on your device, when the data is on your device, then the data is not going anywhere. It's like, if like you play an offline game, the data is with your device, the model is with your device, you get the benefit from your devices. So depend on the sensitivity of the data or the purpose of the model, then you can pick the first architecture, the second architecture, or the third architecture.
No, that's very interesting, right? So, and again, this is, especially what differentiates, someone who is ahead of the curve while deploying AI, because then, investing in own infrastructure to use, local model makes more sense. But how about companies who are just starting their journey, right? For them to basically invest in GPUs, especially when over the last 6 months, the cost of GPU has gone through the roof, to the extent that even Apple had to increase the prices for the first time in 20 years in mid-product cycle, right? So, what is that right stage when people should start, considering that, either using a federated GPU model with an infrastructure provider or owning their own GPUs makes more sense?
So my advice is always, you need to start small. I think as already mentioned by Pak Yusron and Pak Arief, asking an extra new budget from your leadership is not an easy task. So if you cannot build in-house GPU model, then use a partial one in cloud. So for example, if you are using any cloud provider, you can switch on and switch off the GPU. The GPU mainly only needed for training purposes. When training means the model is being trained by your data. Inferencing means that you call the model to get some result. Inferencing usually do not need any GPU. During the training part is the most crucial one. You can use GPU, but this GPU will not take months to training. If your model is simple, can be days. If your model is complex, I think 2 weeks is maximum. I heard there's one model that run for up to 3 weeks, but I think like less than 2 weeks. And with this one, the cost is not that crazy. I mean, like when you turn on, you train, you turn off, and it's only once off. You do not need to train it every day or every week or every month. You train one with the proper data and proper model. You can use this one for a lot of different use cases as well. So only once off cost model of training to get the benefit for weeks and months to come. As long as you can calculate properly the ROI, then it will be beneficial for your industry.
Understood. Pak Arief, just to know your thoughts on this, right? So I believe right now you're using, some of the frontier models, right, per se. So as part of your vision, do you also see you coming down to owning more open source local LLMs in order to drive down cost in the future as the AI adoption increases in your company?
Yes, I think it's very possible to do so. Especially, I'm interested in what Pak Irvan mentioned about the small language model. So I can see that some use cases, maybe it's very straightforward, very specific, and it can actually be made into a simple one, and then we can use that SLM instead of implementing a new frontier model. So it's very simple. Again, it's easier to actually justify to the leadership team actually, but if we have small investment, even though not too big returns, but it's actually justifiable compared to the cost that we are expending. So I think it's something that we need to take a look at also. I believe also some of people in the audience maybe should also take a look at that one. So don't start big and something too complex, maybe something small, something simple, but can give immediate, instant benefit. I think is something that we can take a look at that.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for that. Let me close the first round, with the one who is arguably the furthest up the chain in terms of AI adoption in this panel, right? Pak, you run technology, data, and AI at one of the most AI-forward companies in Indonesia, right? Machine learning, production, this is not something new to you. You have been running this for years, right? The audience expects the hardest part of AI to be technology. I'm assuming that's not the case for you. Right? So for an organization that is as far ahead as yours, what is the hardest channel that remains?
Okay, so this is a very interesting question, and actually technology is still hard as well. So I never looked down at the technology complexity. So I always look at this one for the 3 different angles: technology, process, and people. And getting to the back is harder and harder. So start from the technology, the easier part, which is still hard. A lot of people think that AI is only chatbot. When you ask question, they return the answer. It's not the case. One, AI is not only LLM. There is a lot of other things of AI that can be put into value in your company. And the second one is, even with chatbot like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Cloud Anthropic, DeepSeek, and you name it, and so on and so forth, there is different quality. So when the industry putting, let me tell you one example. If you ask one question, can you tell me something in this room? The answer of, oh, this is look like a conference with hundreds of people is correct. Oh, there is look like a technology conference with 500 people, 200 female, 300 male is another answer. My point is, yes, any LLM can give you the answer, but the deeper, the higher quality of the answer will help you more rather than the generic answer. And this is the one that a lot of people is not aware of. In Ticket.com, what we realized 1 or 2 years ago is like creating the LLM is easy. Having the LLM to create value for the organization is hard. Because when you just throw the data into the model will tell you some answers. But when we ask, is this answer increasing the quality of your work? By how much? 5%, 10%, 20%, how to quantify this one? We struggle for the first 1 year. So what we realize is like, now the focus is not only implement the LLM or the AI, but how can we quantify it into a real? In Ticket now, we have 3 KPI, very easy. One, does the LLM increasing the revenue? We have multiple LLM that increasing our revenue by a lot, when it's really a lot. So that's why the leadership is willing to invest more. Increasing revenue. And I think that should be the lower standard. Second is reducing the cost. I assume this is the easier part when you make a lot of automation that's reducing the costs. And the third one is increasing the user experience. Internal means that it is people can work more productive. If one engineer salary is 10 million, and then the AI cost is 1 million, but it increased 20% of his productivity, it's saving. If the cost of the LLM is 1 million, but it's only increasing 5% of his productivity, it's a loss. That's why equally increasing 5% and 20% is the differentiate between this is a good investment or a bad investment. So that's why we are not even excited, oh, there is productivity increase. Increasing by how much? Comparing to the cost. And the cost is, one is development of the LLM, second is the token cost, third is the compute engine cost. So there's multiple costs that people are not aware. When your LLM is built in-house or on cloud, there is compute engine that you need to calculate on the top of the token cost as well. So this is the complexity from the technology part. Process part, SOP. This is very hard. Why? Because people are already, a lot of questions that I got is like, Pak Irvan, last 2 years ago, 5 years ago, we do not use LLM and Ticket.com is profitable. We make a lot of revenue. Why we need to change? This is troublesome. This is one real story. I asked my engineering leader, a lead, to implement LLM to create code generation. He told me face to face, he said that, Pak Irvan, my job is already busy enough. Now you ask me to explore this new tools, so now I need to do my job and then exploring new tools. I need to do double things. Then I say, no. You explore these tools to help you doing your job more productive. Even the technology leader is not aware. He think that you need to learn new tools and then continue doing your current job. So if the technology people can be resistant to the AI transformation, how can the non-tech people? That's why those SOP is not easy to implement. It takes us a half year to 1 year to make it very smooth and so on with a lot of discussion and so on. The third one is the people. People is the hard part. Like some people that do not understand AI think that, oh, after I'm teaching the AI with the proper data, that you want to replace my job. No, it's not the case. AI cannot replace the job because it cannot replace the job. I mean, like we already explore a lot of things, and I'm using my face and my degree as well. I got my PhD in AI and machine learning. That AI, a lot of limitation that AI will not be able to autonomously working something and replacing people. AI is a tools like laptop that support you. And then some other people trusted AI so much, before he starts something, he asks AI. Before he do something, he asks AI. Do not be the slave of AI. If you know the solution, do it. If you do not know the solution, you can discuss and brainstorm with AI. Do not ask AI for every little things. Oh, should I increase the budget? I ask AI. Should I make this campaign? I ask AI. Trust me, it will be slow down your step. So AI is a tool like you use laptop. You do not discuss with laptop every time. But if you are not sure, you discuss with your laptop. So this is
it's a very, very interesting observation. And then, I'd like to close the panel with one last question, which we just touched. Of course, there was, a lot of questions coming to mind about, what it means in terms of training people on prompt engineering, etc. But unfortunately, we are short on time. So if I look across, the thread, right, people play a very important part in AI deployments. And, the biggest hurdle that we also then observe is that if people are not ready to take AI at scale, then it will not happen in an organization, no matter what you want. Correct. Even the ROI is justified, right? And the basic premise is that, AI will replace me the moment it becomes big, right? Fortunately, the cost of AI and the cost of employee here, are not that different compared to, Europe, where the cost of AI and the employed salary of an employee, is drastically different, right? So that makes sense. So fortunately, we don't see it in this part of the world yet. But based on, this assumption, right, that AI will take away my job, how real is that threat in this part of the world? Pak Arief, let's start with you.
For my case, I think because my industry is actually a dinosaur industry, as I mentioned, the case is very, very small because there still need to be physical interactions involved with what we are doing. So, but in some areas of the business, of course, there is that fear. But mostly, I think it's just uncertainty for the people, for the employees, because they absorb too much information, like I mentioned, from YouTube, from Instagram. And so the conspiracy theory is basically on their head. But in actual life, something like that is quite far, actually, to the real life that we have in our company.
Pranav, what about you? Have you faced this hurdle while talking to clients?
Yeah, so what we've also seen is sometimes people don't want POC to succeed because they feel that if it succeeds, then it will be dangerous for my job. But what we've seen is the efficiency, the output is drastically different between a company using AI versus not using AI. So people need to, I think though there is this buzz that AI will kill the job, but I feel that if you're not using AI to become a better person or better efficient value added person for your company, then nobody is going to replace you. So the crux is to become better, optimize, efficient using AI, and there is nothing that can replace you.
Interesting take. Pak Yusron, what about you? Given from a regulatory industry perspective, right? The biggest AI use case that we have observed in the industry is doing, the credit scoring, AI taking over that. And we know that there are humans actually, who do this day in, day out in the industry. So how does this risk work out for you? Is this a real threat?
So yeah, I think similar with the other panelists actually. So we see the AI as advantages, also as a threat also to the employee. Right? So I think one thing that we have to make sure is actually to deliver the AI literacy in the company. So because eventually as a company we have to deliver profit. Yeah, this is quite sure. Yeah, so and then one of the ways for us to be still competitive in the future is actually by adopting the AI. So in home credit, luckily, so this kind of credit scoring activities actually doing by the machine. So we have the machine learning already up and running. So by having the AI, so this is actually much more faster compared to the traditional machine learning. So I think we see many benefits coming from the AI. So actually, we would like to do more with the same, or maybe with the less investment. So actually, this is the principle that we would like to follow. So meaning that the people will still be there, but we can repurpose the benefit of having the people to do something else. I think some of the operational hassle will be taken care by the AI. So I think that's actually the literacy that we would like to always share to all of the employees in home credit.
Understood. Understood. Okay, so we have almost 5 minutes left. I would like to open up the room. So people in the room who have any questions, please raise your hands. Please keep your questions short in interest of time so that we can cover a few people. And if your question is directed to a specific panelist, please name them. Yeah. Any questions? Oh, wow. So this means either we understand everything. Yeah. Okay, so let me ask a question, right? So again, coming back to the side of people, right? How important do you think is the training part, right? When it comes to, let's say, vibe coding or prompt engineering. The reason I'm asking is reflecting on the question of the chatbot, right? A chatbot, you have 100% flexibility to type anything and everything, right? So how do you ensure that your people are actually entering the right query in order to optimize the use? Because again, if you're running on a model like Gemini, the token costs matter, right? So how do you optimize that? And does it mean that there is a need to strongly invest in people to train them on how to actually use these tools?
Okay, I'm going to answer this from my case. The engineering companion that we have is actually a specially purposed chatbot. So we encourage people to use it. If we don't encourage people to use it, then they're not going to use it. So in my case, it's a little bit different because they have resistance actually to use the AI itself. Once they realize that it's actually giving them assistance, it's providing help for them, then they're willing to use it. So again, for my case, because it's us that's actually pushing them to use the AI. There's no case of maybe people wandering around not regarding to what the chatbot is used for, but instead they specifically ask for whatever they need to have answer from the chatbot itself. But because that's my audience, the audience that use the system itself is actually limited. Perhaps something different might occur maybe from Pak Yusron case, because your customer is actually for public, or Pak Irvan case perhaps, right? Because your customer that maybe use a chatbot is actually the public. So I don't know, maybe your take?
So yeah, I think first on the chatbot, this prompting kind of thing, so we need to always enable on the both side also. First is making sure that people understand how to use the AI. So regularly doing some training literacy so that they will understand how to effectively, let's say, prompt some question or anything to AI engine. And then we try to also capture some feedback and also accuracy. So whenever there is a response that is not really aligned with the expected response coming from the user, so the user can provide the feedback. So this is meaning that, so if the success rate of this accuracy is really low, so we need to do something in terms of improving the training of this AI. So we try to find the balance to the level where the accuracy is becoming very high.
Understood. No, what about simplifying user journey? And Pranav, that's a question I'd like you to answer, right? So if you give an employee a chatbot, the amount of training that he needs to have in order to use that chatbot effectively is humongous, right? But what about if we lower down the options? Give them a menu list of tasks that AI can do, and then have the chatbot only for, the real unique examples which are not part of the menu, right? Is this something that you are seeing enterprises adopting? Or it means that if that's not the case, the amount of learning curve every time you do a deployment at a client is significantly higher?
Right. So whenever we talk about chatbot, people are so used to ChatGPT that they expect it to do everything. They expect that I'll upload file, I'll upload my passport, it'll do my KYC, whatever. They expect that to do everything. But it is very important for enterprise to not leave it open-ended. It has to be guarded properly because the token consumptions, the prompt injections, there's so many things that can happen. The hallucination, the errors, giving misinformation is a very important problem that enterprises are having. So, I mean, when you're training your employees, it's easier to train your employees for using the chatbot, but if you're exposing that to customers, it's very hard. You have to expect what they are, I mean, you have to build it for the expectations that, you know, the customer is having from that. So, I would say training your employees is different than actually exposing your AI for your customers. So you have to make the app so intuitive that they actually can, maybe chatbot is not the right interface for doing something which is very specific to a use case. You should expose a chatbot only when you do user manual, like our panelists have done. So that way it is very easy because they know what to expect and what it will do.
Understood. Pak, your comments on how you're doing this in your company.
Okay, so first I think training is needed, but what we realize is like we just need to have one or two trainings, because when you give multiple trainings, after the training finish, people still not using it. What we did and it's successful is like we built a champion AI ambassador within its team, so that person is teaching their peers how to use this one. So with this one, that for AI ambassador in finance, AI ambassador in legal, AI ambassador in the HR, AI ambassador in product, commercial, tech, data, and so on like that. And then those are the people that influencing their peers to using this one, and then teaching them how to use this one. And then the AI ambassador is part of the greater AI council. So this structure make us have less training, but make sure the useful of AI and the uses of AI is increasing properly.
Very interesting. See, we are almost out of time, so I just wanted to end my round of questions with just one last one, right? So which is looking 2 years ahead, what will separate the organizations that will be able to scale up AI and be AI native in nature versus, what are the archetype of organizations that will not be able to do though? If you were to give a one-line answer to that, what would that be? And I'll go across the panel for this.
I believe that the organization that did not embrace AI will be replaced by the organization that embracing AI.
Interesting. Pakistan.
So I think organizations that will embrace AI will have much more competitive advantage in terms of this crazy competition.
Yeah, that rhymes with my point of view, especially in a dinosaur industry. The one who can actually adapt is the one that actually will survive later on, unlike the dinosaur that we have right now.
Right.
So having an AI strategy will help them achieve whatever they want to do. And without AI strategy, because they don't have the long-term vision, becoming AI native is very, very difficult if you don't unify everything in a single place. So no doubt, undoubtedly, a company using AI will outpace the company using AI, that is for sure. It is all about how do you adapt it.
So, thank you everyone. We are almost out of time. So if we were to summarize our conversation, right, there are 3 things in a nutshell that we discussed, right? First, that scaling AI is more to do with ownership and processes rather than, a model, right? The second is, someone has to own the outcome, because every AI bet that you take, unless and until it's justified by an outcome, there will not be enough interest to basically move it beyond POCs, right? And the third is that the constraint that you have is actually shaping the strategy, right? So every archetype of enterprise, based on the constraints it's working with, whether it's, legacy-driven, very, legacy-driven organization, or whether it is a highly regulated environment, right? You will have different types of constraints. So the AI strategy that may work for you, Pak Arief, may not work for Pak Yusron, right? And then Pak Irvan, there is a certain set of challenges, right? Of course, that even if you're using AI at scale, you still have a technology problem, but people still remains the biggest problem for you. Right? Thank you so much, panelists, for joining me. This has been a very helpful conversation, at least for me, and then I hope the audience also got some key takeaways to take home from this. Thank you so much.